Hello and welcome to another video. Now, if you remember from the previous video, or if you have seen the previous video, you might have seen this 10-year-old computer that we brought back to life. This is a NeMachines ET1352. And basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be converting this into a gaming PC. And it's fairly simple to do it, although I did have to make some compromises when doing this build, which you will see later in the video. So it's fairly simple to take one of these 10-year-old systems and convert into a gaming PC. All you have to do is do a couple of simple upgrades and replace some parts, and you have yourself a gaming PC. And depending on how much money you want to spend on it, depends on how well the performance will be. So let's go ahead and take a look at the upgrades we will be doing to this system. Now, in the previous video of this system, we did do some upgrades to it already. We replaced the hard drive with an SSD as the boot drive, and then we used the hard drive as just for extra storage. So we replaced the boot drive with a 120 gig SSD, which was a much needed improvement to the overall speed of the system. I also upgraded the RAM from 3 gigs to 5 gigs in the previous video, but I'm going to be undoing that as I'm going to be adding in different sticks of RAM anyways. So now that you're caught up on the upgrades that we have already done to this system, let's go ahead and talk about what upgrades we're going to be doing now in this video. So the first is going to be the CPU. We're going to be upgrading from the Athlon 2X2250, which is a 2-core, 2-thread CPU, to an AMD Athlon 2X4640, which is a 4-core and 4-thread CPU. This is a much needed performance boost, and it is about a 20 to 25% CPU performance improvement. Doubling the cores and threads is definitely going to be helpful when it comes to playing games. This CPU cost me about $15 on eBay. Next is the RAM. We're going to be replacing the two 2GB sticks and one 1GB stick for two 4GB sticks, making 8 GB of DDR3 RAM. Now, you can go up to 16 gigs on this board, which is not the same for every board. You have to check to make sure that your board can even go up to 16. More than likely it can, but this NeMachines is special. It can go up to 16 gigs of RAM. I don't know why you'd put 16 gigs in the system like this, especially if you're on a budget, but 8 gigs should be enough for gaming. This RAM I just had lying around, but you can get generic DDR3 8GB kits on eBay for about 20 bucks. The next major upgrade that's going to turn this into a gaming PC is the graphics card. So this is actually a pretty interesting story. So I was looking around on eBay for graphics cards around the $30 to $40 price mark, and then I saw this GeForce GTX 580, and I ended up winning the bid for it for $40. And this GPU performs much better than any other $40 graphics cards I found. Like the Radeon 6000 and 7000 series were the most common ones that I found. But I bought this for $40, which is about half the price of what the triple fan versions of 580s go for, which I think I got a pretty good deal on. This one, the cooler on it, it's a little bit broken because the previous owner did not know how to take out screws and instead just snapped the plastic that the screw goes into. But this GPU performs much better than any other $40 GPU. And I was concerned about the clearance. Like, I thought that it was going to hit the drive cage, but as I was putting the system together, I soon found out that that wasn't going to be my only issue with the size of this card. Now, this GPU consumes around 250 watts under full load, which is actually the amount that this power supply that came built in with the computer can actually handle. So we're definitely going to need to upgrade the power supply. And what I'm going to be upgrading it with is a Corsair CX750M. This is a little bit overkill for this type of system, but this is the only PSU that I had lying around that was capable of handling a 580. All the other power supplies I have are like under 300 watts anyways. So this is a little bit overkill, and any 400 watt power supply would work, like an EVGA basic 400 watt power supply or 500 watt would work perfectly fine. And the price of these 750Ms are fairly expensive, but I'm going to include the price of a 400 watt EVGA power supply, which is around 35 bucks. So if I add up the total amount that I have paid for each of these items, it comes out to around $175. So you could technically say this is a $200 gaming PC. So without further ado, let's go ahead and build this system and benchmark it. Now I was going to do a time lapse of me building this system, but I couldn't because my phone was low on battery and I forgot to charge the night before. But anyways, that's besides the point. Now if you remember earlier in the video, I was saying how I was worried about the clearance from the hard drive cage and the graphics card. Well, that was the least of my concerns because that wasn't actually the problem here. The problem was that the graphics card not only had almost no airflow, but I figured that'd be okay since I had 3 fans on it, but not only did it have no airflow, but it also covered up every single front panel connector except for the power button. So if I wanted to, say, use the SD card reader or the USB or the audio on the front, I couldn't. And I was going to sell this system with this graphics card in it, and if I'm going to sell it to someone, I'm sure they would want even the front ports to work, even if they're not as important as the rear motherboard ports. So I may have to buy one of those aforementioned Radeon 6 or 7000 series video cards. So I had to come up with a genius idea to be able to get this to work. So I didn't want to buy a whole new video card and wait like 2 weeks for it to come. So I remember that I had a spare motherboard with the same socket that worked with the CPU. So I put the CPU in that and I built the system around that board and kind of have it as a open air style test bench, which not only will give it better cooling, it also won't be suffocated by the case. But we're going to pretend that this is still the eMachines and not a open air test bench. So let's go ahead and do the performance tests. So as you saw from the performance figures, this system is actually pretty good at playing modern games at 1080p low settings. The main issue is the CPU. The Athlon just can't keep up with most games, like for example Fortnite, where it can't load in everything fast enough for you to actually be able to, play competitively. The frame rate was good, but the CPU just could not keep up at all with the GPU. And we also saw this in Pine, where that is actually a fairly intensive CPU game. Even with medium to high settings, the CPU still struggled and the game could barely output 30 FPS. But in some other games like CSGO, Minecraft, and BeamNG Drive, the game was perfectly smooth on this system. So what can we conclude from this? Well, the 580 is still a pretty capable for esports games and playing at low settings and full HD resolution. If you decide to do what I did and convert an old OEM PC into a gaming PC, get the Intel version, as the AMD versions around the same price point are just the CPUs are just nowhere near as powerful as the Intel version. Like a second generation i3 can actually play Fortnite better than this thing can with the same GPU. I have tested it, and the second gen i3 absolutely crushes it in games like Fortnite. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It might be a little bit until I upload again, but honestly, who cares? So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.